big man. We're back again with another episode of the Startup Blueprint, and we're here with Cormac Finn today. What's going on, pal? How are you?
Very good, very good. Great to be on the show, guys. All's good for me. How was the New Year and Christmas?
Oh man, I'll tell you something. How's yours been, James?
Mine was messy.
Messy?
I got messy. I rolled the years back. Blackout, can't remember a thing. Nothing more needs to be. How about yours?
Mine was great. I think I presume you're asking me, not our guest, right? Because I like to talk.
No, you drive on.
Mine was, mate. I haven't slept in about 24 hours. So I think it's just continued on from the new year. I keep pulling these all-nighters, and it's just it's quite enjoyable actually. It makes conversations really fun the next day.
Oh, brilliant.
Just delirious at this point, man. Like taking everything you said to the picture. So
nothing's changed. It's me every day.
When did you actually wrap it up then for the new year? Like, Joe, take a bit of time off work and stuff. Did you leave it late, or and did you take a week off, or did you only take a few days off, or you're working kind of intermittently throughout the Christmas, or what was your story?
So my thing actually was on the 31st and the 1st. I was actually burnt out. Like, I sort of hit that brick wall of and then I watched. James knows this. I watched 6 Fast and Furious movies in the space of 48 hours. that was my wind down time.
Then
what about Six Sigma grindset over here? Of it. Grind don't stop. What were the key lessons you found out of Fast and Furious, man? Tell us the insights. I mean, having watched so much, what did you actually learn from these movies?
Tell you one thing, right? It's all about family. It's all about family.
Love it.
I'll tell you this, doesn't he look a little bit like Vin Diesel? That's what they're always telling me, looks like Vin Diesel.
Everyone's told me that. If you imagine this is an up here, right?
Doesn't he look like Vin Diesel?
He does a bit, actually.
I got a feature in Hollywood, baby. That's it. Money.
You can see the little corner of the Vin Diesel poster in his background and all there.
You can see my shrine. I tried to come. That's why my background's blurred. I don't want you to see that shit.
He's got the Ford 1970 Mustang as well, sitting out front.
Oh man, one day we can dream. Cormac, man, tell us then. Did you take time off? Did you see family? What's Christmas and New Year look like for you?
Yeah, so I suppose we've been kind of flat out around the clock working on the startup and stuff. So when it came to about the 23rd, I'd taken very little time off at all, to be honest, there over the last good few months. I'd say when it came to about the 23rd, then I wasn't sure what way it was actually going to pan out. I typically don't book much much time off in advance or anything like that, because I kind of just wait to see how everything plays out with the business and stuff. But this year I kind of just said, I booked the trip away, and I said from the 23rd that I was just going into this and definitely taking at least a week off. So from 23rd through to the 2nd. Did not work whatsoever, for the first time in forever. Even at my last job and stuff, I was very bad for being able to actually switch off and stuff, even over Christmas. But I'm trying to kind of look at that as the sacred week to really switch off, because that's the one where at least you're kind of back with family and friends and people that you mightn't kind of have seen or connected with in ages. I did this time. I made a point of it. I took off 7 to 9 days or something like that. Was really good, and I booked a trip to Paris with my girlfriend for 4 nights, and just did a few different bits and pieces just to kind of wrap the year up in a really good way.
But mate, on the topic of what you said, I think it's actually so important to take time off, right? And it's that stretch from Christmas to New Year's. It's if you don't take that time off, realistically, what time off
are you?
When
Exactly.
are you ever going to take time off?
Yeah.
And I remember we spoke before, Cormac, and you were saying in that last job that you were at, it's them fellas would message you at 7, 8, 9 p.m. and you'd be very responsive. So it sounds like you've always had that little thing where if there's a job to get done, you're right, if I can do it, I'll get it done.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, Joe, even though I was saying in the last one, it was more so like issues are going to come up in a manufacturing plant or wherever it might be. I don't really think that it's like, you know, it's out of bounds. Like personally, I don't think it's too far out of bounds for someone to send a message or whatever. If they're ringing you or whatever, that's different. But if they're sending you an email or whatever, like it's up to you really whether you have your notifications turned on, whether you look at it or not. Yeah, no, what I was saying is just in my last job, I'd be getting, say, emails and stuff like that. It might be laid on. There might be, you know, the plants run 24/7 and they have issues. There mightn't be engineering support on site and stuff. And like, that's fine. You know, I didn't see any issue really, to be honest. Like some people would, I didn't really. People sending out a late email or whatever, because, you know, it's up to the individual whether they screen that and go, nah, you know, I have a cutoff point at this time. Like I didn't give myself that cutoff point. So yeah, I didn't turn off my notifications, and I was responsive. If I felt I could fix the issue or kind of give guidance to whoever was on site to fix the issue. So yeah, I do think there is like a personal accountability within that, and like I do think as well that I've carried that from my college days to my first job, and I've carried it into my startup now as well. So I think it's just a personality trait, to be honest. I don't think that I will change in the way that I am as I go forward. But having said that, like I do look at it and say, right, I would love to improve and have certain things where I'm like, right, this is a sacred week. This is the weekends are for me, my friends, and my girlfriend, to see them more, you know, just to make sure that you cut off everything else, whatever it is, just to get a little bit more of a structure around that.
Very relatable as well. I think a lot of people in kind of corporate jobs feel almost trapped, you know, by those messages, those late night emails, all of that kind of stuff, because it can be very hard for people to shut off, because, you know, you have your boss telling you like, oh, just take some time for your mental health and this and that, but I have this on my desk the next morning and I'm wise and it's so contradictory, right? So I find a lot of people struggle with that. But what you also said reminded me of a meme I actually saw the other day. It's like the life of an overachiever. I don't know if you can see it on screen here, right? Oh, it's not going to hold up too well. Maybe we can put it afterwards. But it's basically like from birth, you're a gifted kid for like your kind of childhood years and teenager, and then you become a highly driven young professional, eager to prove herself at any cost in your like 20s, and then basically from your 20s, late 20s until death, you're a burned out fucking disappointment, right? So I think what happens is people they hold themselves to such high regards, and they're such like kind of grinders, and they want to work hard and make the best account for themselves, that they end up not taking this time off. They end up burning out at a very young age, and it could be detrimental over the long term, right?
Yeah, no, like I completely resonate with everything you just said. Like I think that makes total sense, and it's very much like I think even the timeline of that makes sense too. What I also found, like, which is funny with my own kind of past, and even during my college days and stuff, like when I came from secondary school into like, I would have put in like somewhat effort in secondary school, not much, definitely didn't push myself very hard at all. Kind of did like a couple of like, you know, didn't push for honors and everything or any of that stuff. I took a couple of easier options, like pass maths, pass this, pass that. I was just like, yeah, look, as soon as it became an option, I was like, right, I'll just opt for that, because it wasn't my kind of full personality at the time, but I kind of felt like that wasn't really true to myself either. So I think it was only like halfway through my first college degree that I ended up really kind of switching on and kind of realized, right, well, if I'm not that good at, you know, passing the exams and stuff, then how the hell am I going to do the job? And, you know, and also going into classes and I don't know what the fuck is going on, you know, where like you're going into maths or mechanics or whatever it is, and you're kind of going, you know, you're getting whatever, it might be 45, 50%. And like, you're just passing, but also you don't enjoy the classes because you really don't, like, you're not paying attention. And when you slip behind at the start, it's hard to kind of recover. And I just got to the point where I was like, I'm sick of feeling like an idiot going into these classes, and I'm sick of not getting very good grades and being kind of close to, you know, failure and stuff like that. So I kind of made a big push then to flip that around over the course of like a couple of months. Just kind of went like really deep and doing loads of hours of study every day to try to flip my grades around. And I kind of managed to do that then going into the winter exams. And I was in my second year, I think. But it was kind of from that point onwards. And I saw it was literally like, I'd say it was 4 to 6 weeks. I put down 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, whatever it was, to just completely double my grades. And I actually did manage to do that during that time, just completely at home, basically just studying at home the whole time. But it was kind of from that point onwards that I kind of realized that I was capable to actually achieve a lot more than what I had kind of been achieving up to my early 20. Just up to when I was in early 20. I was kind of like, I hadn't kind of pushed the limits intellectually or effort wise or anything like that, where a lot of it was just effort. It wasn't that I was, stupid or anything. It's just that I hadn't put in any of the effort at all. Did that. And then I think that from that point onwards, I got a few results. I think the key message, what I'm trying to say here, is that when I put in the effort and I got the results, that was the positive reinforcement loop. They'd be saying, if I do this and other things, this will work, and I kept doing that then. And I did it when I moved into my next course. I did it when I moved into my next job. And I've done that for the last, kind of decade now, really. And it's been just from that point onwards, there's been no change whatsoever. But it does have, as to your point as well, it does have its downfalls as well, James, because it absolutely, from over the last good few years, with non-stop from one thing to next to next to next, and you're going hell for leather at each thing you go into, it does burn you out. I felt like severe burnout numerous times over the last, 8-10 years. And, I felt points of severe burnout in certain situations, which were really did impact on mental health and stuff as well. So I'd be very kind of cognizant and advise people to be careful of what ruts they get themselves into, because you do really need to watch that. And I had to pull myself back and I had to make some big decisions as well. Because I understood who I was in certain ways, and I understood that I really need to, acknowledge that this is just who I am. I can change certain things, but I also need to, if I don't want to keep getting the same result, then I need to change the inputs to the equation, Otherwise, the answer is going to be the same. So I really focused on that, and I've made a few tweaks. I'm definitely feeling a lot happier, more energetic now again, but still working my ass off.
Some things won't change easy, will they?
No, I don't want to change that part of it. That part of it's good, but when you're working on something that you absolutely love, and that you're really driven, and so you're kind of, I see this stuff as my life mission. Really, I really found my kind of area that I'm really passionate about, and I can see myself working in this for the foreseeable future.
100%, and that's what I was going to say. I think what you learned in your journey, halfway through your first degree, when you start putting in the work, you realize that, well, I actually got something here, and my secret weapon is my ability to just grind hard and get my head down 100%. And bust my ass harder than the next person. Yeah. But I think just as important as that skill is to learn, and I think everyone at some point in their life has to learn that, right? You have to be able to say, I can put my shit down to the wire, and I can pull it out and make something happen. And that's who I am. As much as important as that is to learn, James, your point being that when you start to identify with that, right? And it's like, as you said, it's a personality trait for you. It's something that you see as, I'm just that guy. That's who I am. I work hard, and I push myself to the limit every single time that I can. I think that's a brilliant thing, but there's also a danger in that, which we're all getting at here, because it's like the key thing you just said at the end. Now I'm working on something I could see myself doing for the rest of my life, because you found the thing that is actually worth applying that skill to. You found the thing, and when people find the shit that they really, really love, and it's like, right, I could do this, and then it's like pull out every single screw and let's get right down to it. But I think a lot of people just take that identification with being a hard worker, and they do hard work to something that doesn't actually pay a long-term dividend.
Yes, that's right? That's an excellent point. Yeah, 100%. Completely agree.
And that's that classic sort of, I know it's a cliche, but it's that classic. And I think it's true. I don't think it's a cliche, to be honest. It's like someone who works smarter will make it further than someone who works harder. Just because you work hard, like you could be digging for gold in a place where there's no gold, working hard.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it's a good analogy as well. Like that is exactly the way that I see it as well. It's so key.
And it's like when you find that thing, it's like, but I'm sort of different personally. I'm not sure. I assume you're similar to me, James, in this and that. It's like you're given a task. Like when I was a corporate employee, I get a task. And I'd be like, is there any point in me really pushing myself to the absolute maximum to get this done as soon as possible? Or can I stretch this out over 3 days and then come back and say, oh yeah, so I've got this, I've got a couple of questions, and then stretch them questions out for another 3 days, just so I can bide my time, think about the stuff that I want to think about, and kind of like toggle along gradually. Whereas when it go on.
What happens when you kind of do it as fast as you want, you submit it quickly? What happens?
You just get another assignment. Yeah, you just get
more work, right? And we've all been in that trap.
100%.
We've been in that trap where I was certainly kind of early days in corporate life, and you're eager to impress. You're fresh out of uni. It's like you want to. Maybe you don't see yourself climbing the ranks all the way to the top, but at least you want to make a good impression, right, on your current employers. And you end up, taking away more than you can handle. You keep going back for more, asking, so keen to impress. You do this for even a couple of months, 6 months, like you are getting burned the fuck out. Like you can't
absolutely
stay in this. And you start to realize that obviously it begins to eat into the rest of your life, right? And if you're not finding satisfaction in your job, you're finding satisfaction in other areas of your life. Because I actually saw that, it reminds me of something I saw on Twitter a few days ago. This guy had a very much like, the typical like VC builder kind of founder mindset. And he said, remote working is going to create like a generation of workers that feel detached and not infused by their work and this and that. And I said, well, it completely depends on perspective. It completely depends on whether you enjoy working in your job or building something, right? And I think as founders, wannabe founders, investors, all of these kind of people that we know and we talk to and we are ourselves, we kind of get in the mindset of like, oh, of course everyone has to love their work, of course they have to do this. It's like we ignore the fact that it takes a long period of trying to understand yourself and try maybe many different things to actually get to that point. And I made the point back to the guy on Twitter because I said, look, some people may love remote working because they see their career and their work as a paycheck. Like this is what allows them to enjoy the rest of their life, and they get life satisfaction from things that are outside their career. And you're just coming from the point of view of someone whose career is their life purpose, right? So it does very much depend on perspective. I would say that I'm quite optimistic in thinking that, I don't know if you agree or not, I'd love to hear your opinion, that most people do have the ability to kind of start their own thing and follow their passion. It's just a question that most people never find it, right? Because they're in a siloed lifestyle doing the same thing over and over. And it's about trying to reach out and have a wider range of experiences such that you can really hone in and find what you like.
Yeah, I think that there's some like really good points there as well. And I completely agree. I think that as well, that it's about finding what really resonates with you. But I also think that people evolve over time. Your mentality changes, your life circumstances change, and you want different things at different times in your life. Like, so there was a time where I only wanted to do engineering, and I only wanted to work in medical devices, and that was like, I didn't give a shit about startups. I didn't give a shit about any of that. Like, I never thought to do my own venture, anything like that. It didn't interest me, because I kind of wanted to get out and do what I did in my degree, kind of prove myself in industry first, have that kind of, get what I wanted to do, get the experience from industry, get kind of the promotions or whatever it was, get my kind of track record going. But it's funny then, but at the end of that phase, it might have been 5 years, that then I wanted to do anything but remain in industry. And I wanted to, I didn't even know what I wanted to do when I left, but then I found the kind of polar opposite, which was, for that phase of my life, after all I'd kind of worked through for years and years and years within college and in my corporate job, that at the end of all of that, the only thing I wanted to do was something radically different to what I had studied and different to what I had done for the last 5 years. Because I want, and really as well, if you look at like medical devices and you look at say the current startup say within software and stuff that we're doing now, like the difference there is stark, in terms of the, like, one is so kind of bureaucratical, and it can be at times slow moving in terms of they achieve so much overall over the scope of the company, but at the same time, to do a small thing, it can take an awful lot of time for the ship to turn, or for you to actually achieve something. So I think in the radical change with a kind of a new startup, that you can tweak something and launch it live in like 5 minutes or in like a day, and there's no one kind of saying, oh yeah, but what if this? You're like, yeah, well, we'll see. If the pipe is leaking, like, water is going to come out, so let's just turn the water on. That kind of way, where like in medical devices, it's like, let's look at the schematics, let's make sure, everything before we turn the water on. And it has that kind of, the process takes an awful lot longer and it's way more careful, where, in startups and software and stuff like that, you can kind of just do things and put them live and just see what happens. And no one's there to kind of intervene and stuff. So like, I kind of really enjoyed that and really wanted to get into something that was, radically different than what I had done. But then one other point as well would be, when you're trying to figure out your kind of passion areas, then I think that, like, and once again, that's a key piece of what we're trying to do, kind of shameless plug here, but a key piece of what we're trying to do with SideTeams and, our platform. It's really to take these different groups of people, like say whether it's kind of students that are starting just in first year, and kind of give them the experience of, it's not just, work on these assignments and do these projects, and they're kind of, these are theoretical projects based on whatever they're assigned by lecturers or professors, whatever it is. Like, we're kind of saying, you can do these, say you can do startup placements and stuff, but you can kind of, you can figure out what your passion areas are. You can do one in sustainability, you can do one in a fintech company. And like, we're trying to allow people to do shorter stints, but across their kind of 4 or 5 years in college, whatever it might be, and really start to figure out before they even leave what they'd like to do. And it kind of, it shows them different sectors, and they're getting real world experience the entire way through. And I think that's really important. Like, we didn't do in my college courses, we didn't have placements. And that, I felt, was that was a big miss for us. And like, even one placement of one of the years would have been good. But I think that what we're trying to do there is really allow people to do several placements, and it's not really tied to the university at all. It's kind of, the student has free time. It's kind of, it's just post exams or whatever. They have some free time. They can contact the founder or whatever. They'll see an opportunity posted.
So Cormac,
it doesn't have,
can a student be proactive and get multiple placements for themselves? Is it very much depend on the individual?
No, so I think that, like, that's what we want to enable, is that we want the proactive students to be able to go on and basically connect. They don't need the university to do this for them. They can connect directly with the founders or with the opportunities on the posting, on the listings, and basically say, like, there's one open there. Oh yeah, we need someone for only 10 hours a week, for some marketing. So for some marketing campaigns. You can get a marketing student then that's like, I want to work in a fintech company, and I'm a marketing specialist, like nice. What I'm doing in my course. Why, and they're saying, we'll pay you. It might only be 100 quid, it might be 100 quid, for the few hours a week, whatever it is. It's not going to be like, I don't even think a lot of the time they're going to get minimum wage, to be honest, because there's the likes of Fiverr and Upwork and other places that you can hire professionals. But what they're gaining is that, if they're proactive and they want to control and customize their CV, and they want to, really learn about their trade, and they want to apply that in real life, then, that's the absolute best way to do that. And I would go and I would do that. And I would do it at several different companies throughout my time in college. And that kind of existed at the time. I would do it. Yeah, because you're going to come out and either you're going to get picked up by any one of the few that you've worked at. So job sorted immediately. You're going to understand startups. You're going to understand different industries. You're going to know where you want to work. You're going to, whether it's going to be a startup, whether it's going to be this type of team culture, whether it's going to, a startup versus a large corporate. Like, I think it'll make the world your oyster in a real way. And it'll really make, anyone that's in college becomes a lot sharper. And they're sharpening their tools the entire way through, not in a theoretical standpoint alone, but in a really practical standpoint. And I think that that's the key difference, and that's the way that things need to move in terms of education as well. Is that things need to become 100%. More and more practical and more tied between academia and enterprise.
And the thing with startups as well is that you see everything when you're working inside a startup, especially an early stage one.
Yes,
like you might be an entry level intern, but you have direct access to the CEO, and you literally see all the decisions. Yeah, all the decisions he or she's making, and you have complete exposure to all that commercial awareness, and that can do so much for you in your career, I think, going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we actually wrote a blog there as well on like the difference and the benefits of working, doing say an internship in a startup versus a larger corporation, and they're kind of the key points as well. Like you have the flat structure, I think, is key. And to be honest, even within our startup, we're only a startup with, say, 3 people full time now at the moment. But that structure, like, I don't intend to change that very much. Until you have kind of quite a lot of people in the company, and it's required for some particular structural reasons where it's beneficial and more efficient. But I think it slows things down, and I don't want a load of chiefs and not enough people doing the actual work and the technical people. I want more of those people and them talking directly with each other. And I think that's really key. And like, I think as well, just in the sense of that and flat structures, just the point just came into my head. I'm reading a book there now at the moment, the Elon Musk book, and it's really, really good. And basically, like, one of the things that he did with SpaceX was he basically assembled all of his meeting rooms in this glass structure in the middle of the SpaceX complex, where you'd have all the managers or people like line leads and stuff. They'd be their areas would be inside of that glass structure, so it's completely transparent, so anyone can see in and out, which is really cool in itself. But for these guys to kind of these are the central meeting rooms, but the actual desks of these managers and stuff are on the peripheries, and they have to go through the production floor cells to get to their desks. So when they're going up and back from meetings, like, the reason for that was that basically Musk was forcing all of his managers to stop avoiding talking to like any of the technicians and engineers, and make sure that there's anything that's coming up is being shouted at them as they're walking past, and there's always that collaboration, that communication opportunity every day, a few times a day, and that they're walking through, and they're and there's a whole piece with that. We're kind of made sure that the engineering department and the design department and these guys are all, like, they're located in the same kind of zone, so that it's very cross-functional, and it takes down the barriers and the stupid communications from this cell to this cell to, like, where they just kind of collaborate on things a lot more as well. And it makes a big difference, So, like, I really think that flat structure is great, definitely. And I think that, yeah, and then just back on the internship piece, I think that, yeah, for sure, like, there's so much that you can gain from an internship at a startup that I don't think you will get at an internship at a larger corporation. So, like, an example would be, you are going to get more responsibility, because the startup, like, it's not like if you start up with 3 people and they bring you in for an internship, like, you might think, oh, that's really good of them when they're pre-revenue and stuff. Like, they're going to make you work. You're going to have to do some work, like,
And Cormac as well, actually. I'm sure all of us have done, like, weird, odd jobs, internships over our years, right? So I'm thinking, like, Suraj and I, and I'm sure you are as well, like, we're big proponents of kind of developing your personality and developing certain traits that will set you up for the future. And it's very important that we believe it's very important that, kids do this, teenagers do this. If you're in your 20s, you should be doing this, and always trying to optimize and think about how I can become a better person. So actually, if I think back on my past, like, I've had a lot of formative work experience jobs in more unconventional internships, right? So, like, working at stadiums, selling drinks, or like running in like an ice cream stall and all this random shit, right?
Class,
and being like a freelance copywriter, or like working for like a fashion brand. And I've done all these random odd jobs. And if I think back, I've learned certain things that I can take forward into the working world, right? So I've learned, like, how to sell better, how to talk to people better, how to write better, how to kind of market stuff, how to liaise with certain parties. From your point of view, have you had any of those kind of weird little internships? Because I think, it's very easy for us to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, get an internship at a startup, be working tech and this and that. And it's like the glamorous end goal for a lot of people, right? These days, especially. I think computer science is like the most sought after degree in the States, at least. But can you think of any examples in your past where you've had like little odd jobs or internships where you've learned something that's a bit kind of left field that you've taken forward?
Yeah, so I suppose, like, what I would have worked on, I would have done odd jobs. I worked in, I've worked in a hotel. I worked literally as a kind of breakfast waiter staff. I worked in the kitchen, cooking fries, doing like all sorts of stuff, taking, we're out of sausages, we're out of rashers, come on, lads. like all just random stuff. So, like, supplying.
I haven't eaten today, man. Don't do this to me.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry, bro.
Oh, man.
cut the
I haven't had
episode. Let's
breakfast
get some
myself
food.
yet.
Yeah, but I'm starving. Like we need to get off the food topic as well. But yeah, that's very interesting. So, like, what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, so like I suppose, with that one, supply and demand, it's important. No, but there's all stuff with, even in terms of like I was kind of cleaning rooms. I was just doing all these different things. But I think that like it's just important to experience different kinds of jobs, and like whether you're learning something really technical, whether you're not, you're kind of, it doesn't really matter once you're getting different experiences and it's something that you hadn't done previously. It's still giving you something, And I think that in the early days, so like, to be honest, in terms of internships and stuff like that, I actually didn't get the opportunity to do much of that. And that's where I'm so passionate about this, because I can see the value. I know the value of it. And I'm trying to really bring that forth now for the next generation coming through college. But it's something where for me, it was all about, just even in the early days when I had those odd jobs before I had even gone into college and stuff, like it was just about, earning an honest wage, and like, where you're kind of it's the first time you're earning any real money for yourself, and you're kind of learning the discipline of getting up every morning, going to work, and just things like that, because this was very kind of early on for me, and all these kind of random odd jobs. But like the most important lessons I've ever learned is in regards to just discipline and showing up and getting things done, whether that is cooking sausages and rashers for guests. As long as you do that job well and you've served your customers, then you've done a good job, and I think that's something where it's all those small kind of softer skills. But to be honest, when I look at things, hard skills, soft skills and stuff as well, if you were to look at the likes of discipline as a skill, it's really one of the, like you'd call it, say maybe a soft skill, but it's really like one of the fundamental skills across the board, that to do anything else, to learn any other soft skills or any other hard skills, if you have good discipline, like you're kind of, you can do whatever you want to do. And I think discipline is 100%. Absolutely critical. And I think that is, that's the kind of core skill I would focus on and work on, that you can develop by just things like showing up, going to the gym, doing all of these things build discipline. And that's the kind of the most important skill I've ever learned, is to kind of train myself to become disciplined. And then through discipline, I've been able to focus, and I've been able to study, and I've been able to do well at work. And it gives you the belief that you follow a process, you work hard, and you get results. And then that as we said before, that reciprocal loop just continues on and on and on. So I think definitely
100%. And I think the more you do as well, the more reference points you have for when you learn from somebody else. Because I'm just thinking back to James, when we lived together back in 2018, I was working for this cryptocurrency startup, and I knew nothing about cryptocurrency, like zero. But the guy hired me as a marketer to do a bit of marketing for him. So I would write blog posts, switch up the Wix website, organize events, and do all this kind of stuff. But I knew nothing about, to be quite honest with you, man, I knew nothing about marketing either. I didn't know nothing about cryptocurrency, and I didn't know nothing about marketing. But for some reason, the guy liked me, so he gave me a job. But like since then, anytime I speak to a specialist marketer and I'm asking them, so how do you actually do your job? I have this reference point of how I tried to do it. And then I have this updated knowledge of like, this is how an expert actually does it. So then I can see, this is where I was falling short. This is where I was going wrong. And I have a more effective reference point to learn from somebody who knows what they're doing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like if you've never kicked a football and then you have a pro telling you about how to dribble, you'd be like, what the hell's going on? At least if you try to do it, then it's going to make a little bit more sense to you. Do you know what I mean? So I think building small levels of skill in all these various different all these different activities or all these different commercial traits can take you a long way. Because then when somebody actually who really knows their stuff comes along and says something, you might have this aha moment of like, actually makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna start doing that from now on.
What's interesting as well is it kind of like I think a lot of people comment and stuff, and they read the experts' opinions and they think they can just leap to the end like that. And it's a great point you're making, SJ, because you need to try it out for yourself, understand how you kind of react to these certain situations or, a certain line of work, and like kind of how you deal with it without having any prior knowledge. And I think a lot of in those moments you can actually understand a lot more about yourself and how you work, which can often dispel, you know, some stuff that some expert is teaching you. Be like, oh, maybe that isn't my way of learning, or maybe this doesn't work for me because I've had a past experience of teaching me that. So it kind of just gives you that broader mindset of not just blindly following an expert, but actually having your own data set on which you can learn and build from.
Yeah, that reminds me of.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off there, man. It reminds me of David Goggins giving an interview where he said he was sitting up in a podium beside this guy who wrote a book about mental toughness. And then obviously he's David Goggins. I'm sure everybody here knows who David Goggins is.
Probably, yeah.
Right. So then he asked the crowd, he said, who are you going to believe? Who are you going to believe about mental toughness? The guy who wrote all the theories about mental toughness or somebody who's gone out there and ran 209 miles in 39 hours?
Yeah, like, someone's been through the ringer, exactly. Yeah,
and it's not just because but then David Goggins becomes this so-called expert, but really what he's saying is go do it for yourself. Go see the experience for yourself. Like, get out there, get your hands dirty, see where it takes you, and you learn something through the process of doing rather than the process of theorizing and formulating.
Yeah, like learning and like literally going in and just thinking that if you read these scripts from these supposed experts, that it's going to, and like even if these things do come from David Goggins himself, that still doesn't teach you the actual fundamental piece. It points you in the right direction and it really motivates you and it gives you the kind of insight. I want to be like that, but it doesn't. It's still like you have to go and do the thing. You know, and that's it. Like, and that's the whole point of like any of the stuff that we've been saying is that like it's the kind of practical piece. And like if you're learning something in college, that's the theoretical side. Then doing the internship or the placement or whatever it might be. That's the practical side. And if you go in and you're doing that, and you go in and they're like, oh, did you know how to do this? And you're like, yeah, no, I've done that. Like, you haven't got a fucking notion. Like, and you're just like, yeah, no, I've done. Like, it's good. Like, go try it. Right? That's fine. But like, I think I really hate when people don't put their hand up and say, no, I actually don't know what that is. Do you mind just quickly explaining that? And like, Joe, that they're afraid to look stupid about it. It's like, you're in first year in college. I don't expect you to know what this is. Like, and like, if you go off and you do it and you make complete balls of it, like, that's but you didn't ask any questions and you wasted a week. But then I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, you know,
I feel like that's almost deeper. That's like a societal issue, I would argue, right? That's like something that's ingrained in us. Like I feel like we're kind of taught from kids that it's not good to stick out, right? A lot of us are kind of, you know, with the whole school system, you know, a lot of schools have uniforms and all of this. So I'm a strong believer that your life is basically set up for you not to stand out. So it's very rare, obviously, for someone to stand out, particularly when they're a kid and when they grow up to be an adult. So you've kind of been indoctrinated your whole life to think in a certain way and to kind of play by the book and to not make mistakes and to try and limit errors. I think it's a culture, particularly in the UK, of like high risk aversion. Right. And what you're describing there, we've all probably been there as well, where you work on a week because you're trying to, you know, maybe impress someone else, or you're afraid of making a slip up and you do more damage. You do more damage down the road, right? You do more damage. Yes, ego and pride as well. I would also go on.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's absolutely it's ego and pride, and you go into things and like that's all fine. I think you should have ego and you should have pride because those things drive you forward. But I think that, you know, if there's something fundamentally, even with a task assignment at the very beginning that you do not clearly understand, don't just take that away and go try to do it. If there's something missing with the input, you know, go figure out, just spend 2 minutes, have that conversation a little bit deeper, make sure that you have the right grasp of what's being asked, and just like, rather than trying to think, oh yeah, I remember everything that was said there and I understand it all perfectly, and then going off for a week and making a balls of something that wasn't even asked of you at all. Like that, you're not learning much there. You're just being a bit of an idiot. But if you clarify the first piece and then you go off and you try and you're on the right path and you're trying and failing and trying, that's brilliant. You know, that is proper learning then. And then, you know, at least you're on the right path and you're figuring out solutions on the right thing, you know, and I think that is important. But I think there's times to, you know, to be egotistical and to have that real drive and like, you know, I can do it. That having, you know, deep within you is really important. But you need to also, you know, have a control mechanism around that and kind of clarity of thought to say, like, you know, just look at it literally, just factually. Do I understand what was just said? No, so put your hand up. All right, what does that mean? Can you explain that a little bit further? This, that, and the other. It's like when you have people that, you know, in a meeting room in a company, and there's a lot of acronyms getting thrown around. It's like, will you look after the XYZ? And you're like, yeah, I'll fucking look after the XYZ. And it's just like, what the fuck is that? Like, I'm going to
what the fuck is the XYZ?
Yeah, and then
You're straight away on Google and everything, just frantically searching, like, help me out.
Yeah. Chat GPT, what is XYZ in medtech? It's not a thing. But so it's just times to know when to wind your ego in and to just ask questions and have a bit of clarity.
It's funny you say ego. I would say it's also like, I think for a lot of people it's fear.
Yes, you know exactly. No, so true.
I mean, the real root beyond the ego is fear, right? It's like fear of feeling like they want to validate themselves, or they want to feel like there's someone in the world. So there's that fear aspect. And I can relate to this strongly, because I always argue it comes from a place of, do you actually want to learn and become that person, or do you just want to appear like that person, right?
Yes.
Because I know when I really got into gymming when I was quite young, like early teens, I was so keen on getting bigger that I would just approach random guys, like huge guys in their 20s and 30s, would intimidate anyone on the street, but I would approach them and ask them for tips actively in the gym because I wanted to learn, right? So it's like, but then you see plenty of guys who will go to the gym for 10 years and never increase their size because they just want to be seen as the guy who goes to the gym, and they want to tell their mates that, I went 6 days a week, and they don't have a clue, right? And they don't want to put the time and effort into learning. And as we all said, you can read everything you want online, but nothing beats actually, I've had my best gym lessons from just approaching random people, who are a lot bigger, clearly bigger and stronger than me, and just learning, and them giving me active tips that I can apply.
Man, what's crazy about this is I literally was talking to my friend like last week, who told me that he would never do that. He said he would never approach a guy who's bigger than he
Why?
He literally said, I said to him, why? Because we've had this discussion about 6 years ago. Me and James used to gym together ages ago when we lived together, right? So he told me this, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense actually. And he was bigger than me at the time, so I was like, all right, let me start taking notes from this dude. Yeah. So I asked my friend, why not? He goes, to be honest, mate, like I wouldn't want to stroke his ego. That's what he was saying. I wouldn't want to stroke the big guy's ego. And then, because I feel like anything that he could tell me, I could probably just read online myself and go do it myself. I know I have that confidence. And I was like, but you have nothing to lose, right? It's like, it may be the case that he feels good about it, but rightly so. He's obviously worked hard.
How is that bad that he feels good?
It's interesting.
It's like, it's win-win. Like, it's a goddamn win-win,
right, Yeah, everyone, a lot of people look at life like a zero-sum game, don't they?
It's always
like,
a zero.
You win, I lose, I win, you like, it's not.
It's the wrong mentality. Like,
it's definitely a suboptimal mentality. Yeah, it's definitely suboptimal.
Yeah. And like, even James, like your key point there as well on, say when you're going to the gym, on day one, like two people go to the gym. One wants to get bigger and will get bigger. One wants to get bigger and will want to just appear bigger, right? And they'll have two different approaches. James will go up and he'll speak to someone that's much bigger than him, stroke their ego as if like that's the worst thing in the world. So what? And he gives you a lot of information, takes you under his wing a little bit, tells you, like what you kind of need to do when your form's wrong.
And mate, like, the other guy will be in the corner injecting synthol, appearing bigger.
With the basketballs under
but like, and
he just wanted an excuse to flex. He went to the gym this morning. He just wanted an excuse to get the guns out. We see what's really, man. I see
my breakfast is over that way, fellas. Just my breakfast is that way.
The first person is going to go on and they're going to ask the advice, and they're going to put on the first plate, and whether it's a 2.5 or a 20 plate, whatever. The other person is going to go on and they're going to put on 100, and they're going to break their fucking leg or break their, and it's just like, they're going to ask for nothing. A nice fit girl walks into the gym and they're going to throw on a load of plates and end up like snapping their leg or something. And then they're out, they're out, and then they're never like, they're not starting. And if you look at that, just that one approach, if you look at that, it's compound effect, and if you look at that gym compound effect, you can't start over here. You have to start here. And it looks like nothing's happening until something starts happening. And then it starts to move more exponentially. Like, I think that the gym is such a good, for me as well, is kind of always been a big part of my life. Same with you guys. And it's all, and it really does, it teaches the discipline, and it teaches everything that you want to know about compound effect. And when you put effort in, it's literally an equation effort in equals results.
I love that. I love that
Way.
final point. I love that final point. That is the one thing I love about the gym. It's like there's no shortcuts, there's no nepotism, there's no external factors. It's like you are going to get 100% out what you put in, right?
Yeah.
And it's all on you. I love that.
And exactly. And but like it's funny though, because like if you look at it's even slightly different to like, you know, a startup in that way, where like, you know, a startup you might put 100% in and you might get fuck all out of it, you know, but like, you know, you're giving yourself the highest likelihood, but like that's the story of the game. But with the gym, you know, it isn't that way. It's energy in, energy out type thing, and it's a complete it's an equation that you know the answer to. You know, and that's what's really great about that. And that's why, you know, you show up and you put it in and you see the progress, and it's guaranteed pretty much, you know, it really is.
I think that's what you just said is why there's so many more gym guys, gym bros, whatever you want to call them, compared to founders, right? Because you can just kind of grind and expect results, but in a startup it's a lot more about leaping into the darkness, right?
Yes, exactly. You don't know the results.
If anything, it's a guarantee that you're going to fail, right? You're much more likely to fail than you are to succeed, right? So you almost have to be just crazy, right? You need to think completely outside the box, or outside what most rational people would think like. So there are definitely certain traits that kind of people who want to be in entrepreneurship and want to found a company have. Which is why it shouldn't be recommended for anyone, right? And if you're much more the person who is very disciplined and can work hard and show up each day and gives it their all, then maybe you should work in a certain, you know, a corporate job or even like a smaller company. But if you're truly of that mindset of like, I want to go out and create in the world, and most importantly, I am very aware of the risk and I'm willing to take huge risks along the way, and I have the means to do so, then you should go for it. And I think sometimes it's like you kind of want everyone to see your position. It's like, oh yeah, you should be a founder too, you should be an entrepreneur. But actually when you talk to people and you understand their personalities more, they're not cut out for it, and they would have a very, very unhappy and painful time trying to start something themselves.
Completely agree. And like I remember I watched a while back, there was a YC video, I think it was Dalton Caldwell and Michael Seibel and talking through.
I love those two. Great videos, man. Great series.
Such a good combo. I love the YC stuff, and I like really, really good. Especially, I love those two, together. They're gas as well. But basically, what they were saying is that there's probably 98% of the world are, you know, kind of, they're fundamentally set up to be really good inside of a corporation and inside of an existing framework that they can optimize. You know, and that they can stick to the guidelines and work that way, and they get the safe kind of, you know, you get your guaranteed paycheck and you get your promotions, and it's more like the gym where you're like, you know, it's more kind of you can really see what the path is going to be. Where like then there's a 2%, you know, there's 1% then that is, you know, highly entrepreneurial, and like, you know, they're more radical in the way they look at things. They would hate and they wouldn't even work well within. They wouldn't even work well within a corporation because they would drive them fucking mad. So like they're kind of the people, you know, they're the polar opposite, and they're a much smaller group. And then there's a really small group as well, maybe another 1%, that basically is the kind of mixture that could be really effective in either one, you know. And it's kind of just trying to understand you shouldn't go into someone and just say, yeah, you should be an entrepreneur. You know, I think it does kind of have to come from within, and you have to understand yourself. You know, do you have the certain types of traits where you're okay with all of this risk, where like, you know, that just to identify which group you're actually in, you know. And I think that you need to be kind of honest with yourself on that as well. And it does take time to figure that stuff out too. And like you might start doing a startup, decide to leave a job, do a startup for a year and go, fuck this, you know, I shouldn't actually be doing this. It's not it's not the right path for me. And I actually much preferred, you know, the security of the job. But like it might tell you that, yeah, but I want to go into R&D within a larger company. I want to go into where there is innovation happening, but at least I have the security and stuff. Or if you're someone that's kind of like, you know, yeah, you just want to go out and create your own thing and you don't really want to have any kind of, any kind of, not direction, but anything that's kind of
like agency.
Yeah, anything that could constrain where you might want to bring your creativity. you know, I think there's people like that just need that. And like, I kind of figured out over time that became the way I was, and I kind of want to just do what I want to do, and without having those constraints. So I think that, yeah, it's just, you really need to figure out what kind of person that you are, you know?
Mm-hmm. A friend of mine made a statement last week. He said the human brain tries to maximize certainty and predictability. Most human beings go, like, specifically are designed, and pretty much all of us are designed and engineered to maximize the level of certainty in your life. Like, you don't want uncertain surprises that catch you off guard and then throw everything into disarray. Whereas if you look at entrepreneurship, it's quite the opposite, right? It's like you're going out on a huge limb into a huge pool of uncertainty, which goes against your entire biological makeup. So it's like, what is driving an individual to want to do that? Like, what drives an individual to want to go against their biological senses and say, no, even though this feels so wrong, I still got to do it. It's like jumping out of a plane. What drives people to skydive? I don't want to skydive anytime soon, personally. But I'm going to actually ask you that question, Cormac. For you, what is it that drives you to want to push against all that desire for certainty and that desire for predictability and comfort and jump into the abyss?
Yeah, so I suppose, like, for me, like, and I think that we may have touched on this before, Siraj, as well, where we had a good chat about you know, about risk and the way that we viewed risk. I think that you know, risk, and it's like, oh, if you're doing a startup, you must be, you know, like, really, you know, you must be really kind of you know, seeking additional risk or anything. Like, it's not really about that. I think that people just perceive risk as different, where, like, you know, in my old job, yes, there was less immediate financial risk. There was less, you know, there was a safer structure. You had your healthcare, you had all these other perks and things that Joe gave you that blanket of security. But then, you know, you're missing other pieces. And, like, you know, the risk of looking back in 20, 30, 40 years and saying, I kind of did want to do this other thing, but I kind of let, you know, the security blanket kind of push me away from it for too long. Where, like, I see that as a risk. And I see, you know, the path of, you know, not knowing what you could have done in other areas and not really experimenting. I think that's the big, like, I think not acting and not taking any risks. You know, I think Zuckerberg said it is that not taking risks is the biggest risk of all.
It's a risk itself.
I see that as a major risk in itself, and I 100% agree with that.
Because then one day you turn around and realize that you're not actually fulfilled with the life that you lived.
You don't have another life to go and say, okay, you know, like, next time around, you know. It's kind of like, I think you have to figure that out. And I definitely don't think it's ever too late to start either. You know, if it doesn't matter what age you are, you know, if you're still alive, go for it. Whatever
this might sound slightly morbid, right? But I frequently, if not daily, remind myself that one day my eyes are going to close forever. They're never going to wake. They're never going to open again. Like, you literally are going to stop breathing and die one day. Why would you not want to seize and everything that you want to happen?
To pile onto that, it's like that day could be today or tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And it literally, it comes back to the question, is like, are you happy with your life right now and what you're doing? And if you were to die tomorrow, as hard as that is to stomach, would you be happy with the life and the kind of, did you show
the
up
effort that you gave up to this point, right? Up to this point, did you give it your all to make shit happen the way you wanted it to happen? And that's yes, then you got nothing to lose. You're like, all right, I lived my best life.
And and I think that, you know, there's, you know, people will view things differently as well. Where, like, this will 100% be like, you know, there's the vast majority of people that their best life is in those more secure jobs, and, like, that's one. Like, I completely agree with that. You know, and there was a point where, like, I preferred that. But, you know, and that's the kind of piece that you say that your thought process on things evolves over time as well.
Funny story. When I was leaving my job, I think I was chatting to my manager. I don't know who it was, and because I became a contractor. I went from doing full time to contract, and then kind of making a transition now where I have a lot of time to dedicate to working on what me and James are doing here with Startup Blueprint and a couple of other projects as well. Yeah, and I remember someone saying to me, "But yeah, there's pros and cons of being a contractor." So I was like, right, I get to travel the world, I get to work like my own hours, take holidays whenever I want, and I make more money per hour. Like, this obviously is way better, right? And he was like, no, there's pros and cons. I was like, what are what are the cons? He was like, well, for one, you don't get any health benefits, and also they don't pay any money into your pension. Mate, I was so I kept the courage. So in my mind, I was like, mate, do you think I give a rat's ass about a fucking pension in 40 years? I gotta see that. I gotta see that shit 40 years. If shit works out the way I want it to work, I don't need no flipping pension from the employer.
Exactly.
8% of your paycheck a month. Kiss my ass. I don't want that shit. Keep your pension.
Yeah, like, and there's plenty of there's plenty of scenarios as well though where it could be
but just to stop, I guarantee a song will listen to that and be like, this kid doesn't have fucking clue what he's talking about. What I just said, he's gonna wish he saved his pension. He's gonna wish he saved that pension.
Yeah.
And I'm broke, living out of cardboard box in 45 years. Like, shit, I should have saved that pension.
Yeah, but at least you would have stuck to your guns, and at least you would have tried. Like, I think, if you go down on your own sword, doing what you wanted to do, what? I'm happy to go down on my own sword, as long as my own decisions, and I went for the highest possible, the most exciting, not the highest possible, the most exciting thing to me to go after. Like, once I'm doing that, I could give a shit what way it actually turns out. Like, well, of course I care. Of course I want it to pan out, and of course I believe it'll pan out. Otherwise, like, I wouldn't be fucking doing it. But it's just 100%. Something where you just have to just know what the right thing is for you. And a point that was mentioned previously, actually, during this chat, which other people when they're kind of thinking about their future path, they just kind of really see it very, very differently to others.
100%. 100%, man. But listen, we didn't even actually ask you what you're doing at SideTeams. We sort of got into it with the internships and everything. But we're gonna leave a little description and stuff. You got time there? You in a bit of a rush?
No, I'm good. Actually, I thought I might have had a call at 12, but I'm good. I don't.
Yeah, because I seen your eyes flicking.
Yeah, no, I was just double checking the calendar. I saw flip on to 12 there now, but actually I'm all good.
But real quickly, why don't you give us the elevator pitch? What is SideTeams? What are you trying to do? What's the mission?
Yeah, so I suppose SideTeams is a network and collaboration platform. So looking to accelerate and to scale entrepreneurship and innovation. So we're looking to kind of bring together individuals, teams, communities that may otherwise kind of not get connected and not find these collaboration opportunities and the ability to learn and work together. I think that's becoming more and more important, and the skill of networking and the opportunity for collaboration is just becoming bigger and bigger, and people are wanting to travel and move around more and get kind of financial freedom. So it's really important to expand your networks and beyond your kind of very siloed circles, kind of branch out further, join different communities, people with different cultures, just kind of get more diverse people into your life, into your circle. I suppose we're trying to open up lots of collaboration opportunities where there's significant synergy. So I suppose we're trying to centralize and organize the entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem, kicking off with Ireland. So we've set up our own Slack structure, and our Slack structure, has eight initial channels, which these are general and introductions. And we'll have a channel for job opportunities, one for boosting your social media content, one for all different sorts of things, and one for help from the community, one for feedback, such as design feedback, whatever it might be. But it's really trying to bring forward this whole win-win mentality. And I think that Ireland as a whole needs to get better at this, where, and other places as well, the UK, there's probably lots of this, people are people, and it's widespread enough, but there are certain cultures where it's more of a thing where they look for the win-win. And I think that it's not done enough. And especially, here I find that where I think that, if even in the startup ecosystem, if the startups were to support each other even further, boost each other's content within this ecosystem, it really helps push everyone along. Would you kind of boost 10 people's post with a repost or like if 10 people did that in return? I think it takes 2 seconds. I would absolutely do that. I think it makes a lot of sense.
And I appreciate you doing that for us, mate. Regularly, with me and James post, I always see it, you either repost it or share, or like it or something. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's that whole kind of piece of like that. You know, it's helping everyone kind of win together and building those kind of good bridges and good relationships. And like, you know, what's the harm in having a very kind of proactive network that all wants to work and help each other out and create
Bro, I personally think you'll find it quite straightforward to get your initial users and to grow, because something that me and James discussed this a couple of months ago, such a contrast from when the point that we both had corporate jobs summer 2022 to then, you know, fast forward to October, November, we're both completely free, doing our own thing, going to all these different startup events. Like James went to SaaS Talk, we went to a few around London, and just the mentality that people in the startup ecosystem have is so different to the corporate world. Everyone's down for collaboration. People are very, very, very willing just to listen and have a chat to see what you're doing. Like that's how we met, right? Mutual friend. Yeah,
exactly.
Ravi gives us the little intro, jumped on a call, ended up talking for an hour. Here we are.
And absolutely, and that's a really good point as well. Like, you know, as we were kind of, you know, talking about the whole networking piece and like that being, you know, one of the absolute core skills coming into 2023 and beyond, is that it's becoming more and more and more important with a kind of more interconnected world. But you know, if you get, you know, you speak to, like, say I met up with Ravi, we had a random chat one time. Then I met Ravi's team that he was working with, another 2 or 3 really sound guys. We've met up a few times. We've done a couple of intros for each other to other people. Anyone that Ravi has introduced me to, I've now probably met 5 to 10 people through that thread.
Wow.
You know,
nice.
I met you. I met like Ravi would have linked me up with yourself. Joe, you would have then brought in James. Now me, you, and James are, you know, well acquainted. Then there was other connections with Luke or whoever it might be. So there's always, you know, like, and like then from that one there's another one, and it just kind of spirals to these, like, there's hundreds of connections.
Luke is like the great Gatsby of the Irish startup ecosystem. He just knows every motherfucker.
I know, but he's given me great advice a couple of times now. Really smart lad.
I'm very happy to hear that.
He's so that once again, it's a really valuable, great connection. And like I find that from you get one really good source that's in the same kind of mind frame as you. They point you to someone, and every time you go down the thread, you're kind of getting people that are more and more and more closer to the way that you think about things, and people that could potentially help you for different aspects or do different introductions, and it's just so important, it's so valuable, you know.
I mean, James, you were literally saying this like 2 days ago, right, when we were talking. You were like, you know, because obviously everyone when they're younger goes out, parties, drinks and stuff like that, whereas like we were both discussing this, James sort of initiated it, that like moving more towards just wanting to be surrounded by like-minded people, and not even go out and party the same way that you used to when you're younger, but like go out and have intellectual discussions about business, about different industries, about different problems, exchange stories based on what you're trying to do for the future, not really going hanging out with people. Nothing wrong with hanging out with your friends from the past. I'm not saying not to do that, but like there's a certain limit where you meet up with the people you know from university or people you know from secondary school, and then it can be difficult when no one's doing the same thing as what you're doing, and you try to communicate with them like, so have you heard of this GPT-3 thing? We're doing something, and they're just like, oh, what's that? And you try to explain it to someone, and they're just like, oh, that's all mad stuff, and it's like, it can be frustrating.
Exactly, and I think that's the kind of key thing, and it's kind of back to people evolve, as we said, people evolve over time, and your interests change over time, and like that's even back to with this kind of community aspect of what we're trying to build. Like we have the core group, and there's say 8 channels that you can discuss these different topics, say for founders and aspiring entrepreneurs. But then we have say 30 other channels that will be registering interest and getting active now over the coming weeks and months, which might be artificial intelligence, design, no code, low code type channels, things that are particular topical areas, and things that people have an interest in, that if they don't know, like none of their current circle understand anything to do with ChatGPT or AI or machine learning. So they're like, but I'm interested in that, and I'm also interested in startups, and none of my friends are interested in startups. for AI. So you're like, we don't have that much in common anymore in terms of like what we want to talk about on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So that's what these communities are for. It's to kind of bring these people together. And as your interests change, if you do an AI startup and it fails and you're kind of sick of AI then and you want to do something, then you jump into a different community in something to do with the equestrian field, something to do with horses, whatever it might be. But it's just, people change, and there's always, what we're saying is that there's always a community and always a team for people that want to, go and do something productive and collaborate with other like-minded people,
Mate, to be honest, I actually was speaking to my 18-year-old brother. I actually wish that your product was launched in Birmingham right now, because that's where he goes to university. Because he was saying to me, what's the best thing that I can do to make myself a more, like, he framed it, like, he didn't phrase it the best way, but he just said, what's the best thing I can do now to make more money when I'm older, or to be in a better position to make money when I'm older? And I said, what are your problems right now? And he was just like, I just go out and party too much and do the same thing with the same people, doing it for like the last 2-3 years, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, mate, see, to be honest, I think the best thing that you could do is literally go find a startup hub in Birmingham University, just go show your face there 5 or 6 times. Eventually someone's going to be like, who is this kid? He just stands in the corner and reads a book and like looks over people's shoulders. Eventually someone's going to talk to you, or you take the initiative and you go talk to them yourself.
Yeah, you just go and talk to them, right? Just initiate a convo with anyone.
And that conversation is going to take you ahead by a year. In just half an hour, you're going to go ahead by a year.
100, like, and all it is like, as they always say, you're the sum of the 5 closest people to you. Like, all of that rubs off on you. You rub off on them. If those people that you're interacting with the most aren't, the people that are in the positions or have the knowledge or have the whatever it is, the attributes that you want, fucking move on. And like, it's not saying cut anyone out or leave anyone behind. It's saying, spend the majority of your time with the people that kind of, fulfill the right level of intellectual conversations and things that, that interest you. And it might even be that. It might be just other things that you just think that this person is just a fucking really cool person.
Value.
And like a great person. Right? Yeah, like, this person's a great dad. This person, it doesn't have to be anything to do with business or a joke, but it's just the people that have great attributes in any way, whether it's leadership, being a father, this, that, the other, but it's just that makes you, helps you to grow as a person in any way. I think that they're always great people. And also I would say that, when you're meeting up with anyone, like, it's always good to just connect with new people, have a chat, not go in with any sort of agenda, and just chat to them, let them know who you are, what you're doing, find out, don't just talk about yourself, find out what they're doing, who they are, what they're doing, what their background is. And, you can leave it at that. And it's really just, putting it out there. And then if any, you'd be surprised where opportunities come from, and where other introductions and really important connections come from. It mightn't be that person that helps you, but in 2 years' time, that person's like, oh, like, Joe, you've had it on and off chats every now and again. And they're like, oh, sir, I was doing this thing. I just met this investor. And, and it's just like, you don't know, who they know or what their connections are and what their goals are, So it's just important to keep expanding your network.
And it's so important to go to, like, in-person events. And even now, I kind of set aside time on my calendar, do like a couple of calls a week with just like random people. Obviously, they're not people off the street, right? But people that I found on LinkedIn that have a job description that I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I want to
some way related to things that you're interested in.
Exactly, right. And you have these like serendipitous connections that you could then take further. And as you said, you don't know, they might be useful today, tomorrow, 2 years time, 5 years time, whatever. But you need to, and another point I would add to that as well is, like, you always need to make sure you build a deep relationship with these people. I think a lot of people, we're in such a culture now, right? We're in such a culture now where, like, people look at your Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn followers, and it's like, oh, that's your measure of, how well you know people, how well ingratiated you are, right?
Yeah,
you've got hundreds of thousands of followers.
Total bullshit.
These people don't know you personally. Like 0.01% of those people actually know you personally. So you tell me what's more important, getting those hundreds of thousands of followers or having a circle of like 100 people that know you really, really well and that actively add value to your life, and you do the same to theirs.
100%, absolutely, I completely agree, right? And like, if you were to look at that, right, the kind of a phrase around that might be like, inch wide, mile deep type thing. it's not just for any personal connection that you might make. It's actually a great point as well for anyone that's doing a startup, is that, you know, to focus on something that's, you know, inch wide and mile deep rather than mile wide, inch deep, and, you know, focus on a particular niche or vertical and kind of get some movement there. But another point there that you mentioned is that, Joe, you were kind of utilizing, say, LinkedIn and looking at people's titles and stuff and trying to figure out, you know, is this someone that has something in common with me? And Joe, reaching out, we're like, that's something actually that we're trying to take a step further now with SideTeams, and we've kind of restructured that to be basically these digital pins that make up your personality, your soft skills, your hard skills, your interest, and what's your availability. So like, you'll see on anyone's profile that they'll have, like, there's an option when you're being onboarded of like 7 or 8 pins that you can pick from, and they might be that they basically tell other people what you're available to do, who you are. And it's like, it says that you're an investor, or that you're a mentor, or that you're open to co-founding a company, or that you're open to a networking coffee, and it's still, or you're open to doing a podcast, whatever it is. And then you'll have a big bulk of other pins that says that, you know, you're skilled in artificial intelligence, this, that, or the other. But then our kind of matching mechanisms will help people quickly filter and look for people that are open to networking coffees, that are founders, you know, or people that are, you know, these couple of things, and they can connect with each other really fast. And where on LinkedIn, it's more of just a title, and it doesn't tell you fucking anything about the person, really. And I think that's, you know, kind of an issue. It's just like, yeah, I'm a senior mechanical engineer. You're like, okay, you know, it doesn't tell you enough. And I think that, you know, that process can be significantly improved, and that's what we're kind of looking to take on as well, as really help people connect to people, but making the information, you know, very transparent to a particular community. Where, you know, LinkedIn has 877 million people on it, where, you know, what we're looking to do is take the innovators, the entrepreneur-minded people, and kind of bring them together into their own network, and then have, you know, ask them very particular things and display very particular pins on their profiles to, you know, based on, you know, because people are seeking mentors, investors, they're seeking interns, these very particular things to help you get up and running in the early days. So yeah, our kind of big focus is on that, but it's absolutely to help people find a network with other like-minded people, like you said, that you do yourself.
Love it, man. Yeah, never underestimate the power of like a cold DM as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just reach out to anyone. You never know who can provide value. But man, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Great to have you on. Been very insightful. A little bit different to what we normally do. We normally like stick to the business side, so it's nice to come back and just talk a little bit more about like the mentality side. You know, all of these kind of little different aspects that people can hopefully take on board and apply in the short term. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, bro. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. And sure, look, we talked a lot about, you know, the mentality side of things and past experiences and stuff today. But look, I'm sure we'll do a 2.0 anyway. We'll be back again.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%, man.
All right, lads. Great chat.
Take care, bro.
We'll catch up again soon. See you guys.
Speak soon,
Take care of yourself, man. All the best.
Bye.